Namaste, welcome to Satsang today. So I wanted to use this time today to answer some questions that have been sent in. If you ever want to ask a question, but don't want to ask it live on this session, or you can't make a Satsang live to ask your question, then there's a facility on the website, the Satsang page, helenhamilton.org, or on the contact us page there, that you can send something in and it gets read out anonymously. So just in case you didn't know, that was available. So I'm going to go for a few of these, and I'll open it up here to see if there's anyone that wants to or needs to ask or share anything. Okay, so this first one says, Dear Helen, I grew up believing I was alone. This led me to feel that I needed to handle everything in my life on my own, that no one was there for me, and controlling behaviors. Situations in my life as an adult continue to prove that belief to me. Even when I use the question, is this true? I still can't find satisfaction. As awareness, I'm looking through my eyes and feeling alone. Course in Miracles teaches us that all of our problems are due to the idea that we feel separate from God. Am I yearning for the comfort and safety of feeling connected to Source? How can I let go of this deep feeling of being alone in this world? Thank you. So I think what you've written here, many beings would resonate with. I certainly did. I felt like I'd been dropped off from some nearby planet growing up as a child, and I just really wanted to go home. Wherever that was, I didn't know. Now I realize where that home is. It's everywhere. But and of course, that belief, as you said here, if I feel I have to handle all of my life myself, that belief then also begins to reflect in our experiences, and it continues to do so even when we feel that we come to intellectually know perhaps that I'm not alone in the universe, or maybe that I'm so totally alone that I am all there is. Because if we take the word alone, you probably know you can split it into all one. It's just missing one letter. So you've asked this question, is that true? I'm guessing it was about being alone, or is it true that you have to handle everything yourself and you haven't found any satisfaction as yet? But for me, what I'm interested in more from what you've written is, as awareness, I'm looking through my eyes and feeling alone. So this is where I put my attention if I were you. I am you, but in that body mind, that's where I put my attention. This statement, as awareness, I'm looking through my eyes and feeling alone. So if we look at that specifically, let's take a moment just to zoom in on that sentence, because that is the key to undoing everything else. As awareness, it's impossible to feel separate. So I'm looking through my eyes and feeling alone. So that's coming from this idea that we still have on some level, that awareness is my awareness, or different to, separate from the awareness. I'm aware of the greater awareness, or that awareness, my awareness, is an object, is a very subtle thing with an end point. At some point, somewhere, my awareness is only in my head, or it's only as big as my body, or as big as my sense of separateness. But if we really look at what awareness is the key to coming out of this once and for all for you. Awareness is not a thing. It's not an object. It's not a something. It's not a someone either. If we ask the question right now, am I aware? And there is something that's aware, that knows what words are being spoken, what your eyes are seeing. It's looking through your eyes, as you said. But where is it and what is it, awareness? Let's really slow down and have a look and make sure. Because if I still feel and hold on to the fact that awareness, this is my awareness, different to your awareness, and there might be infinite numbers of awarenesses then, each one of us having our own packet of awareness, so to speak, then that makes awareness limited and finite. And it really cannot be like that. You cannot have something that's formless and insubstantial, intangible, that is actually separate to anything else. If we take the space between my hands as an analogy, empty space between my hands, can you divide empty space in the middle? Could you cut it, slice it, snip it with scissors? Can you divide it into two, the empty space? Does it even stop where my hands are? Or is it not in the exact same place? When it's here, I call it a hand. When it's in the middle, I call it awareness. When it's here, I call it a body. When it comes out of here, we call it words, but nonetheless, it's the same. I'm going to use the word thing, but there isn't, it's the same no thing. There isn't really a word. I might just invent a word and have done with it for something that's not a thing. So awareness is not a thing. So awareness is looking through your eyes, but is it alone? It feels alone when it looks through the eyes and then looks through a thought. So there's a thought and the eyes that it's looking through. That thought is, this is my awareness. This is me. With the misunderstanding that we all have at first that I recognize there's awareness here, but it's still limited, it's still finite. If we really get curious as to what awareness is, then we might find that, or we will find eventually that, and depending on how curious we actually are to undo this assumption, depends on how long that time period is. If I really want to know, really want to know that awareness isn't a thing, could never be a thing, could never be my or your awareness, then I'm going to come out of it very, very quickly, out of this illusion. It feels like my awareness is different to yours, doesn't it? I get that. And that's what held me back for so long. But I used all the other kind of doorways, as we've been calling them, silence. Awareness is silent. Where is that silence when I listen to it? Stillness. Where is stillness? Is it a thing? Only things can move. Only objects can move. Stillness can't. Consciousness, where is that? It's very definitely here. But where is it? Is it a separate thing? Is it my consciousness and yours? This now moment, and all these are names for the same insubstantiality that we are. Formlessness. We keep treating that formlessness as if it's a form, a subtle form nonetheless, but still, not like a table or a sofa or a human body. A subtle thing like a thought, but nonetheless, we're still treating it as if it's a subtle thing. So that would be my recommendation, to really investigate that. But when I really went into this, I found out that I was alone, but alone as everything and everywhere. And in everything that I encounter, wherever this body goes, has this friendly, safe feeling, because I'm just meeting myself wherever I go. And I can never meet anyone else. And I never have done. That was the biggest illusion I was holding on to, that there were other beings, other things than me. So if I'm a thing, there'll be lots of things. If I realize I'm not a thing, I am the subjectivity, the pure experiencing itself, with nobody experiencing, then I can't help but be gloriously alone, but never, ever lonely. Even if my body was on a desert island and I never saw another human body for the rest of existence, still couldn't feel lonely. Doesn't mean that I don't want to be around other beings. Sometimes I might enjoy time on my own. But those are just very loose concepts that we can just play with once I realize I'm utterly alone, I'll feel safe. There's nothing other than me to hurt me. I'll feel relaxed. I don't have to try to make someone like me because there isn't anyone else. I don't need to seek approval or love or respect. Most of all, as you've said here, I don't have to try to cope on my own. I was fiercely independent, and life had to humble me with some very chronic shoulder pain years and years ago, which has resurfaced for another humbling. But it was only then that my body had to accept help from others, when I had to get this message spiritually as well. So, yeah. Okay, I hope that helps. This one says, "Hi, Helen, thank you for sharing truth with such love. I'm in awe by everyone's courage." Me too. The things that everyone asks are so brave. Would not have had the courage when I was seeking. So for years, I've experienced severe headaches, jaw, mouth, and face pain. In the past year, 2 accidents badly bruised each cheek. It's felt so strange and symbolic. And the mind is fascinated by these symbols, keeping the patterns moving in loops. Maybe someday I'll stop silencing myself. I'll take off the mask. I'll let myself be seen and heard. I'll surrender fully to the pain. Or I'll have enough resources to find a treatment. Someday I'll figure this out and get my life together. I'll be enough. But I see these are all things a separate self can't ever do. That's massive, isn't it? Really, that you can see that. When the pain returned this morning, part of me wanted to panic. Instead, I wrote this. It became its own contemplation. What is this pain really showing me? If this doesn't change, can I be okay? Is it true I'm not okay? Is it true I'm not already myself, capital S? Is it true I'm not doing enough, or that I'm not enough? Is it up to me to figure this out? I love that last one. Well, I love them all, but that last one especially gives me goosebumps. Funny how none of the questions care about symbols or why the pain is in my face. And this feels much more empowered than panic and loops. But since this type of inquiry is new, I welcome your insights with love and gratitude. So it's very exciting. And it's not that this inquiry, these new questions that are coming, this contemplative inquiry, it's not that we're disregarding the body or saying, I'm not this body and it doesn't matter what happens to it. It's not that we're doing that. We're just going with the inquiry to a deeper root of this. We've been trying to fix this by trying to change the imaginary separate being that we thought we were. And you've said quite clearly here, that's maybe one day I'll be confident and brave and, not care what anyone else thinks. Maybe I'll be able to show myself. And those things are just kind of inherently impossible, aren't they, for a separate being? Because a separate being is craving approval, love, respect, acceptance, safety, from the assumptions that it has that it's not loved and accepted and safe. And our experiences keep repeating that on these loops, as you've said. So when someone has this kind of spontaneous questioning arise, that's really exciting from my perspective, because it's questioning the core assumptions in the first place. Is it true I'm not okay? I'm not enough. Is that actually true? Before I go off on an endless pursuit of trying to do this self-improvement thing, through many body-mind vehicles when they're coming and going, let me check first if I'm actually starting from where I think I'm starting from. Inadequate, not good enough, all of those things. Is it true I have to figure this out? That's another one, isn't it? Any spiritual thing that seems to arise, our separate sense of someone immediately goes into action. Okay, I'm going to figure this out. Got to find a way to deal with it. What if your job, though, was just to be aware of it, to watch it, to notice it, to deeply embrace what was coming up, even if you didn't like it? And that's exactly what you're doing here with this kind of inquiry, this kind of question. It's powerful. You said, and you can feel your body's telling you this feels lighter than this kind of figure it out, got to fix it, got to fix me. There's some room there, isn't there, in these questions to allow something to unfold, because all we ever have to do is find the assumption that's being experienced, the belief, the thought. And here's a fundamental shift here where I stop trying to fix who I think I am. And I begin to question if that's even true in the first place. For many, many years, we're fixated on trying to fix and improve our so-called character flaws. But if we're not who we think we are, how reliable is the information we're getting about these character flaws, and do they actually need fixing? Do they even exist in the first place? Am I really inadequate, unsafe, not good enough? And that's not to say, of course, you might want to develop more compassion or understanding or wisdom or kindness. You might want to allow that to come from the inside out more of the qualities that perhaps we would have on our wanted rather than our not wanted. But figuring it out and trying to fix something that isn't broken and could never be broken, that only seems broken when we look through thoughts, it's never going to do it, is it? As you said here, it's exciting. I have to say, you're right on track here. I'm very, very excited by this, and I would love to hear what comes out of this. People, and I know it's natural, people, they find this question that resonates and they have this breakthrough, and then this thing's forgotten. It's gone from their consciousness, and I never hear what happens. But if you remember, and if you want to, I would love for you to write back in and say, this is what came out of these questions. Not just for me, but for everyone, because these are highly intelligent questions. These are coming from the self, aren't they? From the universal, undivided one being. What is this pain really? What is this pain really showing me? And then my sense of my sense of adequacy, completeness, wholeness, perfection, and unfolding as ever greater perfection. Paradox, I know, but then that reflects down through my mind and my emotions, and then into my physical form, where if we look at with the body, Louise Hay's work was very, very helpful for me. Not so much the affirmation side, although I have done those many times. But as I got closer to the truth of my being, they became less and less effective because they felt like they were lying. And of course, her work is beautiful and has helped so many beings. But it's useful. It was useful to me to get to the core belief that the body, the pain, was trying to show me. And I just happen to know, because it's something I've looked at myself. You can Google it, of course, that the face, issues with the face, represent who we, what we show of ourselves to the world, the face that we put on to other beings, whether we wear a mask or not, metaphorically, of course. So, that's right on cue here, isn't it? Of course, I'm going to want to hide if I don't feel good enough. And of course, going to want to hide until I try to fix myself and manage to do that. But I never quite can, because there's never really anything wrong in the first place. Endless loop, so much suffering. And finally, we come to this. Well, let me question those assumptions in the first place. So yeah, right on track there. Definitely. Next one. Hi, Helen. I'm grateful for your insight, advice, and time. I'm wanting to know where blaming comes from. Short and sweet. Blaming. So whether we're blaming ourselves or others for something. Well, let me just speak about self-blame, and it probably will reflect into blaming others. From my own experience, blame is it's a form of judgment, isn't it? A self-judgment. I should or should not have done that thing, said that thing, got that thing, become that thing, done. Whatever we're blaming about, it comes from an assumption that things should be other than they are, the root cause of it. And if it's self-blame, it comes usually from the assumption that me, also synonymous with awareness, reality, whatever. I am not how I'm supposed to be. And this is where blame turns itself inwards as a spiritual seeker. I am not how I'm supposed to be, and therefore I'm going to try even harder, as we were just saying with the last question, to fix an illusion that doesn't exist. I try really, really hard to fix this separate sense of self. And the blame for me fixated on, if I was more awakened, this thing, this person, this emotion, this experience that keeps happening would not be happening. Blame. But if you had no idea of how things were supposed to be in this moment, how you were supposed to be, or anyone else for that matter, anything else, just try that on for a moment. I don't know what I'm supposed to be right now. And then any action that comes from there, any words, any whatever, is going to be very, very different. You'll find it impossible to blame from there. You could say, I don't know how I am right now. I don't know how I'm supposed to be. I don't want to know. And then my body says something that might be perhaps less than loving. We could say, I would prefer if I could speak in more loving ways, but that's not the same as blame, is it? Don't have to blame. All blame comes from a should and a shouldn't about something or someone. Myself, usually. Blaming of others is a reflection of my blaming myself. Can't stop blaming other people, judging other people until I stop judging myself. Why? Because those other beings are me. I have assumptions about how they should be, just like I have assumptions about how I should be. And in that, then, I'm caught in this endless loop. I'm trying to get other people to change to how I think they should be, blaming them when they can't do that. Or won't do that. From the assumption that I know how they should be because I know how I should be, and how I think things are is how they actually are. So when I'm looking through my mind, I've got no other option. When I'm looking through my mind at reality, I've got no other option to try to change and push against what reality is showing up as in this moment. There's no other way then at all. And when that doesn't happen, when reality doesn't conform to my mental projections, I'll either blame someone else or I'll blame myself. In reality, they're both the same thing anyway. So blaming for me fell away as my ability to judge myself and my willingness to perceive reality through thoughts diminished. I just didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to see what actually is. Everything still looks the same shape. Sofa looks like a sofa. It's not like things have magically changed in my visual field. But whatever things are showing up as right now in this moment is exactly how they're supposed to be. If they weren't supposed to be this way, they'd be some other way. Reality cannot do shoulds and shouldn'ts. It can't do hypothetical situations, what ifs. It's just this. It's showing up as this. It's invisible, it's formless, and then it shows up as these forms. If I'm showing up angry, irritated, that's the only way I could have been in this moment. If I'm showing up feeling scared or feeling restless, somebody else is irritating me seemingly, that's the only way we could experience this moment. To say otherwise is really only from the mind. It is as it is. Cannot be other than that. So I hope that helps really with insights into blaming and how it can stop. Most of all, blaming ourselves. If I was cleverer, if I was more devoted, if I was more awake, if I was more committed to my pathway, if I was more loving, if I was, we could go on forever with that list. This thing would not be happening. So what happens when we stop that and say, as soon as I can be more loving, more devoted, I will be. That's the only option for me. I'll show up that way. And in the moment we embrace that, that's more loving and more compassionate right there. Immediately it manifests. Immediately. When I can do it, I will, and not a second before. When I can be it in the manifestation, I will, and not a second before. That's where reality hangs out, isn't it? Rather than this should and shouldn't. Okay. We'll go to one more, and then we'll open it up for, if anybody would like to raise their hand here on Zoom and invite up to 4 more questions. I'll just read this last one here. Hello, Helen. It feels truly nice to be in your presence, and your truth shared always works magic in me. Thank you. My body has always been obese and was constantly being put down by my family over the years. Now, even my doctor wants me to get help. Is my fear and shame about it, or not loving myself enough, the actual causality that's showing up? Since no matter what I do is working anyway, I also wish to know more about conscious imagining. Please guide in gratitude. So our body is a physical, tangible representation of the allness that we are. And it has, if you could take the formless infinite space and somehow condense it down into physical representation, a representative image of you, it would be our human body. So it has all of our individual and unique perspectives. It lives those, reflects those instantaneously, and all of our unconscious assumptions about ourselves, or conscious assumptions that we're trying to work through. You've pointed out one here that you're not loving myself enough, etc. So for me, I've not struggled with obesity. I have struggled most of my adult life with weight gain, and never more so than after deep, clear seeings that I'm infinite and formless. And it never really seemed to be, it never felt fair. How come when I feel, when I've really experientially seen that I'm weightless, formless, infinite, and everywhere, how come the bathroom scales are telling me otherwise and going in the wrong direction? And I had to really, I spent about, I don't know, about another 5 or 6 years blaming myself for not being able to figure this out, why the pounds are going up as the beliefs seem to be going down. So I haven't experienced that particular intensity of it, but I have battled with that to some degree, as I have with almost being on the verge of alcoholic and depression and other things. Long story, which we can, talk about another time. But for me, I had to really come to accept that how I think I feel about my body. So if I look in the mirror and see my body and it makes me feel, seemingly makes me feel a certain way. And for me, that was disgust, shame, hatred, even at some points, guilt. Again, a lot of blaming. Look at my body and just go, I just can't even look at it, actually. Couldn't even stop long enough to look at my face in a bathroom mirror. For a long time, stand in front of the mirror saying I'm beautiful and perfect and I love myself just as I am. It felt terrible. Absolutely terrible. Felt like a lie, in fact. So I had to really, over time, I had to realize that what I wasn't willing to accept, how I feel about myself, how my egoic sense of self felt, I couldn't face that. So I was projecting onto my body. My body has no choice. It's innocent, it's neutral, it's a blank canvas. It will take the shape, quite literally, in this situation of any beliefs that I'm holding on to. So excess weight gain for me, not feeling safe, not feeling lovable, not feeling nourished by life, not feeling safe, respected. And stuck in that cycle of blaming my body. This is how I feel about my body. I feel disgusted. I feel ashamed of my body. I had to really admit that's how I feel about myself on some level. My body is just the image in front of me that's showing me this. It's the mirror image. So I had to really get honest with myself. How do I feel about my body? And I stood there in front of the mirror one day and just wrote down everything that came up, how I actually felt. I stopped avoiding it. I'm not saying you need to do this. You might not be able to do this right now. I'm just saying at some point I was willing to look at exactly how I felt about myself. It was really shocking as well, because there was so much peace and silence and a deep sense of love for all existence. And the only thing that was missing out of that all of existence was how I felt about my own self. It was quite extraordinary to be so clear what I actually am and still have these residual feelings for myself coming from my ego. And I had to recognize that these things were coming up now because of my seeing. And it's the same for you. Because your satsang is deepening, your awakening is progressing, you now come into a point where you're willing, on some level at least. Our ego is never willing to look at this stuff, but our real self is. This is how I actually feel about myself on some deep level. Really intense dislike for myself, hatred, shame, all these beliefs that I'm not how I'm supposed to be. So I had to really look at that. Why do I think that? Why do I feel that way about myself? Why do I think I'm not lovable? Where's the evidence for this? Of course, all I could point to was my experience. People rejecting me, walking away from me, criticizing me, saying some quite horrible things, doing some quite horrible things to my body. And in the end, had to kind of get to a willingness where I could say, none of those things were okay. And of course, I'd want to protect myself from those type of beings that were going to say those things. And I have protected myself, distanced this body from those beings, those other bodies. But that I will always be at risk of being treated like that if I kept treating myself like that. Not that it's my fault or anyone's fault, because there's only me everywhere. But that unless I'm willing to look at how I really feel and question if that's true, with a deep, deep urge to know, questioning. Why do I hate myself so much, actually? Where has that come from? What evidence am I taking? And it's always my mind's thoughts about me, my ego's thoughts about me, and other people's reflection of how they treat me. These reflections cannot be different, ever. If they're reflections, they've got to reflect how I'm feeling about myself. And I had to actually leave my body alone for a while. Stop trying to change its diet, stop trying to make it lose weight, exercise more, because all of that was just actually making me put more weight on. I go to the gym, I burn loads of calories, I come back and eat twice as much as I would have done if I hadn't gone to work out. And I had to kind of just put a pause on that for the moment. Well, none of that stuff's going to work while I'm still feeling that way about myself. So conversely, when I actually begin to fall in love with myself, everything I do then is going to work to help me lose weight, but from a place of a healthier respect for my body, not from a place of shame. I should lose weight because I am wrong, there's something wrong with me. From a place of, this would be nicer for my body if it had more vitality, more energy, if it was able to choose foods that are better for it, etc. So there's still a work in progress for me even now, still carrying a few more pounds than I would like to, but it's just gently, slowly coming off as I continue to deepen my own self-love. How do we do that then? That's the crux of it, isn't it? How do I fall back in love with myself? And not the self, the formlessness, because we all naturally want that. We won't be in satsang otherwise. We actually love that. How do I fall back in love with how my mind and body is right now? what my mind thinks about me. How do I fall in love with my egoic sense of self that pretty much hates me? How do you actually do that? Well, through understanding that your mind and your ego have never met you, actually, and never could, through no fault of their own. Core of self-love is coming from the understanding that nothing in duality can actually see you when you're everywhere. Your mind, your thoughts have never seen you. They only see what they think about you. And other people are reflecting back to you what you think about you. But there's nowhere, you can never find anywhere when you deeply investigate to say those thoughts are true. Have you ever then really met yourself? In the manifestation, I mean, your mind, your body, have you ever actually looked at it without thoughts as a filter? Have you ever just stood in front of the mirror and not known anything? See how that feels. Notice the tendency that when I stand in front of the mirror, I don't actually even see the shape so much that's standing there in the glass reflection. I actually see all my attention goes to my thoughts, my emotions in that moment. Have I ever actually just stared at my body long enough, or my mind long enough to really see it? Something profound happens when you do that. You fall back in love with yourself because you realize you're beautiful and that your body is innocently reflecting back. It's a canvas that we paint on our thoughts. And that's true whether it's a mental health challenge, a physical health challenge, an emotional health challenge. It has no choice but to be reflected back to us until we look at the idea underneath. And this is all coming from the assumption that you know yourself. You know it, you know yourself, and therefore you know your body, and you can make conclusions about how your body is and isn't, how you would like it to be. What if your body was the only thing that had never judged you and was constantly giving you real-time honest feedback about how you're treating yourself? So I hope that helps. Please do write back in if you would like more help with that. So if anybody would like to ask a question here today, feel free. Lena, whenever you're ready. Are you ready, Lena? Yeah, there we go. You're muted there. Is she able to unmute? Yeah. Let's try again to unmute. There we go.
Okay, yes,
Wonderful.
yes. Hello, dear Helen. Thank you
Hi.
for everything. Thoroughly enjoy listening to you. Sorry, it's a little bit early in my place.
It's okay.
I have a very fundamental question for me. Let me be short and just ask you direct question without all that introduction, how I came to that. So how to stop feeling separate? I actually know all theories and I came to deep understanding of that, but now I'm confused with practical steps.
So first of all, and I
Thank you.
appreciate the directness, I really do. Find out what you actually are. Find out if you're a thing. And then if you're not a thing, if you're something that is not a thing, if you are formlessness, awareness, silence, stillness, consciousness, presence, really find out where that stops. Find out how, if something is formless, can it have an edge? Can it have a boundary? Because that's important. If you find out that you are awareness and you still feel separate, it goes back to that first question that I answered this morning on the ones that are sent in. If I still feel separate, then I haven't really found out what awareness is. There's more to see about it. I haven't really found out, because we are so habituated to thinking about objects, phenomena, that we even treat the awareness as a phenomena when we encounter it, the silence, the consciousness. And we suffer them because we're still treating ourselves as a thing. So find out what you really are. And the fastest way to do that is self-inquiry. What is it about me that's not going to leave at some point? And is that a thing or not a thing? And then if it's not a thing, where is it then? Where am I? And if I don't find myself as a thing, if I can't pinpoint myself, this is where I am. You can do that with your body. This is where my body is, but where am I? There's only 3 options for existence, according to mind. Non-existence, which isn't true. You are here. Existence is a separate being. When we actually look, we can't find that. My awareness doesn't seem to have any edges. Our existence is the everywhereness, is the allness, omnipresence. The first one, you do exist, so we can discount that. Non-existence is not an option for you. You can also discount the second one because we can't find a separate being that we think is asking the question. So if you really let that, if you really become deeply, urgently curious about what that actually means, then if you're not a someone, only other option, if I'm not a being in time and space, I must be time and space. I must be all of that. So I hope that helps.
Yes, I guess I need to listen it again. This is exactly where I'm stopping. When I'm contemplating, I feel myself everywhere. I don't feel my body and I feel that I'm awareness, but I still have an attachment that whatever my body disappear, all feelings, not feelings, even awareness disappear. So I'm still feel attached to my body.
So you said, we can look at this right now if you want to. You said, I feel that I'm everywhere. I lose awareness of my body, right?
Yes.
So the body disappearing, it happens every time you self-inquire. Are you actually experiencing, when you look and find that you're everywhere, when you really feel what you actually are and you're everywhere, is there still a body in concepts there? No, nothing else than you. So what actually is this then? Is it a body? If you're everywhere, absolutely everywhere, in every single cell of that body, is it really a body? You, the formless awareness, as we're calling it today, is everywhere, absolutely omnipresent, could not be missing from one single atom in time and space, everywhere, the whole universe. Then there cannot be anything other than you. And I had to look at this again and again and again. What that left me with was the realization, and I do mean again and again, I had to look, that this is not a body. It's myself, it's the awareness looking like a body. And that the body perhaps was never really born and doesn't actually die. It just goes back into its invisible, unmanifest. You know, some invisible, intangible stuff coalesced and we call it a body, and then it begins an independent existence, seemingly. We call that birth. At some point, that independent existence of the body comes to an end, we call that death. But right now, you can self-inquire and experience your every-awareness and find out that you don't need a body. Right now, do you need a body? The awareness that you are, does it need anything at all?
Yes, I really want to feel it completely, but I guess I just need to continue to inquire exactly on this question, because I feel it's like a pitfall and I like stuck on
A pitfall or a jumping off point for greater discovery? There's doubt here about this for a reason. Nothing going wrong with that doubt. Doubt is a springboard. Okay, I could be more convinced about this, a deep conviction. And I'm not going to look at that as something going wrong. Because I was convinced for a while that I need a body and that something's going to be different when it's gone. I'm going to be diminished when my body's gone. Something like that, right? And I knew I couldn't find myself anywhere. I could find myself everywhere. But still this doubt lingered for a while that when my body's gone, I'm going to, something about my experience is going to be lessened, diminished, or something like that. I don't need it, but I'm looking through it. Okay, when I can't look through it, life's going to be worse, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get a sense of it?
Yes, thank you. We'll continue. And also one more fear. When you said just right now, and I really felt it, how it's come inside of me, you said that nothing can hurt you. And I completely understand it on a level of their awareness, like totally understand and totally feel joy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm afraid physical pain.
Yeah.
So physical pain can be accepted and understand it and just let it be. Is it correct?
Yeah. When you first see that nothing can hurt you,
Right.
My mind said, okay, nothing can hurt awareness because it's formless. You can't burn it, kill it. You can't do any of those things. You can't hurt it. But something could definitely still hurt my body.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, physical pain is one of those, isn't it? Or some external thing, or some disease, or something. And to me, again, this came from this belief that this actually is a body. So looking at the deep question, what really is my body actually? What is it made of? And you can include in this, what is physical pain? I've had to look at this several times myself, from the questioning the doubt again. Is physical pain, if this is a body and it's experiencing pain, then I have to literally experience those ideas and I will suffer. But it's actually possible to feel physical pain without spiritual suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So the physical pain is there in my body, wherever it is. There's also something there that really does not want it, really is resisting it. And if I let those two things be, should or shouldn't them, of course, when there's pain, there's going to be something in me that doesn't like it. Then I'm not suffering if I don't resist them. Suffering always comes from resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Physical pain, of course, we'd rather not feel it, but we also don't have to suffer while we're feeling it.
Right.
So wherever there's doubt, just not saying that that's because you've done something wrong. You've realized I'm everywhere. Okay, I can also apply this now to the body. What is the body then in light of what I've just seen? What is physical pain in light of what I've just seen? What is COVID in light of what I've just seen? Or wherever you want to take your inquiry from there. Life will show you. And one of the functions of a spiritual teacher is to say things. Yep, I can feel that. And then they say something, you go, oh, I'm not quite so convinced of that one. I can feel. That's kind of one of the things that the scriptures do and everything is I'd like to know that one with as much conviction as they do. That's all that's happening here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes, it's like Buddha said, pain unavoidable, but suffering is optional.
Optional, yeah. For a long time, I thought they were the same thing. And of course, we all do. But resistance is always optional. Even if I'm resisting physical pain, I don't have to resist that. I don't have to judge that I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll always resist physical pain.
Yes, and the last, thank you very much. And the last student meeting, we couldn't answer that question why Ramana Maharshi had cancer. He was being like the greatest master. And actually Nisargadutta Maharaj, he has cancer too. So what is your opinion about it?
Something has to be the physical mechanism for the ending of the life, physical life,
Right.
something. So one being will get that same illness or disease and recovers from it. At a certain point, something will bring the body to an end. How that really happens is not so important for the awakened being. Whatever brings this body to an end will be whatever it is that brings this body to an end. The doctors might give it a label or a diagnosis or something, but there'll be a knowing that that's the only way it could have gone.
Mm-hmm.
So having that same thing earlier in life, there'd be a recovery from it. But when it's time for the body to go, it's time for it to go. Nothing on earth can stop that body from going before it's time. And when it is time, nothing on earth can keep it here. Whatever it is that brings it to an end is inconsequential from the perspective of an awakened being. So it served me beautifully, its whole existence. And it now just wants to, the entropy of it all is becoming too much. It wants to go back into its less organized. It takes energy to hold this form and structure together for a while. And after a while, you don't want to do that anymore. We call that death. But latent tendencies, things that haven't been examined, or perhaps sometimes awakened beings take on the karma of other beings and allow that to, they help another being do that, transcend it, take it on for themselves. It's never the reason that mind says, it's always something completely different.
So they also incapable were to choose just peaceful death.
Yeah. Many awakened beings will just sit down, go into a deep meditation and leave their body quietly.
And they weren't able to do that.
But they chose not to for some reason. I don't presume to know what that reason is.
Right.
Yeah. But that's kind of always an option. Once you know that what you really, really are, what the body is, a kind of a conscious death. This is a whole other conversation, of course, but why they chose to die in that way is, from whatever they were experiencing at that time. And sometimes a being like that will take on something that would take another being 100 years to process, or 100 lifetimes. They can process it in 5 minutes themselves. Not because they're better than that other being, it's just that their body is more clearer, allowing more light to reflect through. So really, the only thing that kills any body is the withdrawal of the life force. That's what death actually is, isn't it?
Yeah.
What gets put on the death certificate is different for each one of us. But the only actual thing that ever causes, and I'm using that word, I don't really like it because of the implications of duality, but the only thing that ever causes death is the withdrawal of life force by the consciousness.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to Rose and then we'll leave it there for today. Hi, Rose.
Hello, Helen. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me? I've got headphones.
Yes, wonderful.
So lovely to see you and to talk with you. Thank you. I have a question. I think it's quite a simple question. It's about light. So we have this association with light as with the divine, or Jesus saying, "I'm the way, the truth, and the light." But when light appears, either usually through my closed eyes, if I'm meditating, like a burst of light. Recently, I've been thinking it's just phenomena, and kind of not going down that pathway. But recently, it's changed. Sometimes there are sort of balls of golden light, and I kind of go, "Oh, it's just phenomena," and then I'm in a pushing it away rather than going, "Gosh, this is it,"
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, look at that.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Or after the last DTE we had, which was really wonderful, and I was so enraptured by what you were saying. And afterwards, I had an enormous amount of energy rushing to my head. I had headaches. I had all sorts, and I was seeing both with my eyes closed and open, because I was trying to experiment, almost these zigzags of light, sort of silver and blue, which I've seen before, which was and all the head energy was going on. So it was going on, eyes open, close my eyes, still going on. And another thing is sometimes when I'm meditating with my eyes open and I'm looking at space, so the nothingness of space, the air, the transparency vibrates, and I try to see, is it midges, is it England, are they just some tiny little midges or something I can't see? But it's like the nothingness, the noumenon that is in my limited sphere of looking, as opposed to the large, is vibrating. Can you help me a little bit understand what that might be, please?
That's some very similar experiences myself, and it was like it was trying to show itself, it being me, but for sake of it could show up any way. And I always had a kind of aversion at first to the light. I am the light, and it was like almost like I don't want to go there. And but I accidentally happened to fall in love with Christ, as you do, and I thought, what is he actually talking about? And I would wake up sometimes at night time. I'd wake up, but before my eyes opened, it was like someone was shining a really powerful light right in front of my eyelids. And I was sure that if I opened my eyes, there was going to be somebody standing there with a light or something. And it's a little bit scary at first till I got used to it. And sometimes it happened in meditation. Sometimes it would happen that my body would just start to feel like it was. Have you ever seen, I don't know if you remember the Highlander movies, where it's just like, all this light shining out. And I thought, if I open my eyes now in this meditation, that's what I'm going to look like. The whole room will be. And of course I did, and it wasn't like that, but, or this intense vibration, like I might vibrate off the sofa where I'm sitting. I might just, and then other times it was intense heat, like this fire that didn't come from anywhere in particular. And I realized that all of those were ways that my mind, my body was trying to interpret this just excess of life force energy, perhaps for the first time. The first time I had more energy than I needed. Yeah. I was like running on empty my whole life, like we all are, with, because so much is tied up in our thoughts. I drag myself through the day until I can go to bed at night time. Sometimes just waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning going, I've had more than enough sleep, apparently, even though my mind didn't agree with that. So it showed itself in all these ways, as heat, as light, as vibration, sometimes as sounds. Sometimes I'd hear someone calling my name as if they were standing next to me in my bedroom, just gently saying, Helen, and like there's nobody there. So it manifests as sounds and all sorts. And I thought I was losing the plot. I probably was losing the plot for quite some time. But it taught me all the different ways it could show up, that it could do those things. And I remember also laying in the grass in my garden and looking up at the sky, the blue sky, and really just watching it. And there were all these swirly things going on in the sky. They were all like chasing each other. And if I really stared at them and intended it, I could get them to come towards my body. I could make them do things. And again, I thought I was losing the plot, but I realized it's all just me. It's all just energy. And we're so used to not having enough or just about scraping by. But it can show up as all of these ways, can't it? As light, intense light. Sometimes this intense feeling of joy or love just kind of radiating out from the body. It's all the same thing, really.
Yeah. That's super useful, and I think it's also really helpful to kind of use that or look at that in reflection to digestion and kind of like nourishment, because that's really affected at the moment.
Yeah.
Whether it's actually that sometimes more listening because actually less energy from food is needed, or very different.
Yeah.
energy.
I found that myself, that as this deepens, there's days my body doesn't want to eat anything at all. There's days where it will still eat as it used to. There's more of a more immediate nourishment coming from the life force. It's almost like sometimes food seems a bit slow and clumsy way to get that nourishment. And no disrespect to food, because it is also me, but sometimes it just doesn't, there's some process that's going on where the body's more efficient at assimilating energy, and it's not wasting so much of it either. It's not hemorrhaging energy through believing thoughts. So there's a less requirement, and that's translated as less eating less food, not by some force thing, just generally it's going that way. Less sleep needed, better quality of sleep when I do sleep, probably what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And when it did push through a particular belief in a particular chakra, solar plexus, for me, digestion was really challenging. There would be this intense heat again when it kind of finally burst through this belief. I'd seen through it in my inquiry. There'd be a lot of heat in a particular place in the body. So, can you hear me okay? I think we lost you for a moment there.
It's going a bit, it's the reception's going a little bit sketchy.
Yeah, okay.
I heard you, but you were stretched out and manipulated.
Cool. I think we said what we needed to anyway. Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank
It's really,
you.
really lovely having the connection. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. So it's a good place there to leave it for today's satsang. And I just want to thank you all for sending in the questions that you do and for being brave enough to ask on here. I know it's not easy. Sitting in this chair, I know it's not easy. And well, in any chair, but going live with any kind of public speaking tends to terrify us. It did me for quite some time. The courage, like one of the questioners said, they're amazed by the courage of everyone asking questions, and that needs to be, I second that definitely, because it takes a lot of courage to reach out for help in the first place, especially if we think we should know what to do. So just want to recognize that the strength and the courage and the conviction that's in there with all of us is perhaps not discovered as yet, but definitely coming to the surface. So thank you. Namaste. Okay.